Hello, this is Kate. I'm Woolly Faye. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be working this Mosaic Overlay swatch. We're going to take just a few minutes to look at the graph, familiarize you with all of the details, and then we're going to move on to the construction. You're going to need 2 colors of yarn. Whatever weight you have in your stash will do. I'm using Yarn Bees Breathe Deep in Sage and Teal. It's a Aran weight, or what you call a worsted weight, polyester yarn. I'm also using a 4-point-millimeter hook. I do tend to size down a bit on my hooks. Use whatever is appropriate for you. And then you're also going to need a pair of clippers. Remember that you can pause this video at any time and hit play when you're ready to resume. So let's take a look at the graph real quick. We've got a foundation chain of 20 and a foundation row of 19. That's because we're going to lose a stitch when we put the first stitches into the back bump of the chain. For the foundation row of 19, you're going to find that row represented on the graph right here at the bottom, row number 1. You're going to put 1 single crochet into the back bump of every chain, beginning with the second chain from the hook. Because we're beginning with the second chain from the hook, of course, we have lost one of the chains that we started with. So that's why our foundation row is 19. Now, up the side here, you can see that each row is numbered. The first row is on the bottom of the graph. The final row is at the top of the graph. We read the graph from the right to the left, and then we fasten off at the end of every row, come back to the next row, we add our new yarn, and then of course, again, from the right to the left. So we're never turning our work. We're always fastening off, and we're always adding our new yarn on the next row that we're working. You also see here that I have these marked A, B, A, B. That's the color. So on my graph, teal is representing color A, and this sage color is color B. Whatever colors you decide to use, you're just going to need to assign color A or color B to them. And that will be the color that you use on each row according to what this graph says. So if you're working row 4, you're going to be working your color B. Now, you see that some boxes have X's and some do not. Some are empty. Where you see an X, you're going to dip down. And you'll understand this more as we go. But when you're reading the graph, if the box is empty, you're going to do what you call a back loop single crochet. Now, that's just basically working into the back loop of your stitch. Every stitch has 2 loops, a front and a back. I'll show you that here in a minute. But if the box is empty, you're just working into that back loop with a single crochet. If it has an X, then you're going to be dipping down, and that will be a double crochet. Now, the reason we work into the back loop is to leave the front loop available for the dip downs. So every dip down that you have, there should be a front loop available to work that. You're going to be working your double crochet stitch 2 rows down, corresponding stitch and corresponding color. So by corresponding color, what I mean is that we are switching colors every row. We're actually starting over here on the right. So we're going to do A and then B and then A and then B. So when we dip down on row 4, okay, we're actually working into the front loop 2 rows down of row 2. So we're going to go ahead now. I'm going to be reviewing all of this with you. We're just going to kind of move back and forth. Let's go ahead and get started. You're going to chain 20. So if you've completed the foundation chain, which should be 20 chains in all, you're now going to construct the foundation row. As you saw on the graph, the instructions say to put 1 single crochet under the back bump of every chain, beginning with the second chain from the hook. Before we do that, let's kind of take a look at this chain. Look how it's structured. you have a flat side on one side, and then on the other side, if I turn it over, you can see it has little ridges. Now, if we look at the first chain, which is right here, you don't really see that bump. It is in there, but you kind of have to peel it back in my case right here. But if you look at the second chain, you've got a back bump right there. That is the bump that we're talking about. If you're unsure, again, you just kind of turn it sideways and count the chains that way. You're going to stick your hook right underneath that bump and complete a single crochet stitch. Then you're going to put your hook under the next back bump, pull up a loop, and complete a single crochet stitch. And then on the third, and all the way down, when you finished, you should have 19 stitches in all on your foundation row. Now when you get to the end, just wait on me and I'll show you how to fasten off and then add again on the next row. Now I've completed the foundation row by placing one single crochet into the back bump of every chain, and before I fasten off, I'm just going to shore it up. So I give it a little tug on the tail here just to kind of line this up and make sure it's not loose and sloppy. Now I'm going to chain 2. When you've chained 2, then what you want to do is take your clippers, cut off your yarn, pull the hook up until it releases that tail, grab your tail with one hand, take your fingers and pinch along the base here where the 2 chains are, and just pull this way with this hand and slide down with this one. And that forms a really sturdy knot, so you do not want to tie off or fasten off until you have checked your work. So moving on to the second row. So we're moving on to row 2 now, which is right here. And as you can see, we're starting with color B. You can also see that all the way across, there are no X's in any of the boxes, which means that you will single crochet into the back loop of every stitch. There is an exception to this though. You have the first stitch where you attach your yarn, and you will work under both the front and the back loops to attach the yarn to that first stitch. And then over here, you're going to work under both loops on the final stitch before you fasten off. All other stitches between the first and the last stitch will be worked into the back loop, and as I've already said, the front loop that's remaining will be what you attach to when you need to work a dip down. So let's go ahead and work row 2. Okay, so I've just laid my foundation row down, and if I am new to mosaic crochet, I may get a little confused about which side that I should be working. So you have a very textured side here. You can see where some of those stitches are quite full. And then on the other side, it's a little flatter, and you have a ridge at the top and the bottom. This is where your chain was. And this, of course, is your first row, your foundation row. So you're going to want it to be on that side. If you look at this one, it's a little fuller, more textured stitches, then you know that you need to turn it over to the other side. So with my hook under both loops of that first stitch, I am now going to add my color B. I'm going to pin that to the back of the foundation row, yarn over and pull up a loop. Chain 1. And after you've chained 1, you're going to want to just put your finger on that loop. All right, and then you're going to insert the hook right back into the very same stitch. Pull up another loop, yarn over and pull through both loops. So it's like a single crochet stitch. And I sometimes just give that not a harsh pull, but just a little tug to make sure that it's not loose and sloppy. From here on out, as the graph showed, we're going to work single crochet stitches all the way down we'll be working into the back loop. So here's the front loop. We want to avoid that and go into the back loop, which is on the back side. Pull up a loop and complete a single crochet stitch. And you're going to do that all the way down. And when you get to the final stitch, just wait. We'll do that together so we can be sure we've got it right. Okay, so I am now on the last stitch. What I do is I insert my hook under both of those loops, complete a single crochet, then I chain 2, and then I clip off that yarn, pull the hook up until the tail releases, grab a hold of the tail with one hand, and with the other slide those 2 chains down. You're going to form a very tight knot. So if you're working mosaic overlay, always just take a look to be sure everything is as it should be before you fasten off. So now we're on row 3, and row 3 is color A, so we'll be attaching with teal again. And then of course, as you can see, there are no X's in any of these boxes. So once again, we're going to be working the teal exactly as we did on row 2 with color B. We'll fasten on, then we're going to do back loop single crochets all the way down to the last stitch. We will finish the last single crochet under both loops of the stitch, and then we're going to chain 2 and fasten off. So let's go ahead and do that. Insert our hook under both of those loops on that stitch. I'm going to grab my color A. Again, I just kind of pin that to the back side with my finger. Pull up a loop. Okay, and then we're going to chain 1. Then we're going to insert the hook. Remember, I'm holding on to that loop with this finger. Insert the hook under both loops of that first stitch, the very same stitch that you started with. Pull up a loop again, and then yarn over and pull through both loops. So basically chaining 2 and then doing a single crochet. Now we're going to work into the back loop of every stitch just as we did on row 2. There you go. Just insert in the back loop, pull up a loop, and complete that single crochet all the way down. The final stitch, again, you just put your hook up under both loops of that stitch. You're going to complete that single crochet stitch. And once again, you're going to chain 2. You're going to clip off the yarn. You're going to pull the hook up until you release the tail. Grab the tail with one hand and slide those chain 2 down until the whole thing forms a tight knot. So now you're ready to move on to row 4. Now we're looking at row 4, and this will be the first row in our swatch so far where we use the dip downs. So we're going to be starting with color B, as you can see here on row 4. So you will add on here, and then as you can see immediately after, there is a dip down double crochet. So if you have any confusion over how that works, we're going to be doing that next. And then of course, after our dip down, we're just going to do back loop single crochets. There's no X in those boxes. And then we're going to be doing another dip down, then 3 back loop and a dip down, 3 back loop and a dip down, 3 back loop and a dip down, and then we're going to do that final single crochet under both loops and fasten off. Let's go ahead and add color B. So I've pinned that to the back. I pull up a loop, Remember, I've got my hook under both loops of the stitch. I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to come in here. Let's get where we can see it clearly. Hold on to that with your finger, insert your hook back under that both loops of the same stitch, and then you're going to complete a single crochet. Okay, and I just like to pull on the fringe just a little there to make sure that it's not sloppy. Okay, so from there we are going to do a dip down double crochet stitch. So what you want to do is you want to, this next stitch is right here, so that stitch you're going to go straight down, and you're working with color B. You're going to go 2 rows down, so there's your first row and there's your second row, and you're going to be working into this front loop right here, okay, with a double crochet stitch. So wrap once, dip down to that second row down, insert your hook under the front loop, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. Oops. And then we're going to do 1 back loop single crochet in the next 3 stitches. So now you're going to do another dip down on the next stitch. So here's your next stitch. You're going to go down the corresponding stitch in corresponding color and do a double crochet into the front loop. And don't get confused and move over too far. You want to go straight down. Again, you'll develop an eye for it, move rather quickly once you've learned it. But just when you first start, just make sure that the stitch you're working into is corresponding to this row at the top, okay? So wrap once, slide your hook up under that front loop, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. And now again, we're going to do 1 back loop single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and then we're going to do a dip down double crochet in the next stitch. So we're going to come straight down, corresponding stitch, corresponding color, and do the dip down under that front loop. This is why it's so important to do the back loop single crochets. You can't work under both loops or it doesn't work. You've got to have that front loop available for those dip downs. Now we do 3 more back loop single crochets. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to do a dip down on the next stitch, so I come straight down to the corresponding stitch, 2 rows down, same color, up under that front loop, and I complete that double crochet stitch. And then 3 back loop single crochet, and then I am going to dip down the next stitch, corresponding stitch down, straight down. I'm going to put a double crochet stitch underneath that front loop. Okay, and now I'm on the last stitch, and I am going to slide my hook under both loops and complete a single crochet and then chain 2, clip it off, slide my hook up, grab a hold of that, use my other hand to push those chains down and create that knot. So now we're on row 5, color A. That's the color that we're going to attach with. So then we're going to have back loop single crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches. Then we're going to do 1 dip down, 1 back loop, 1 dip down, 1 back loop, 1 dip down, 1 back loop, 1 dip down, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 back loop single crochet stitches. On the final stitch, we work under both loops and then we fasten off. So we're adding color A. To begin to attach the yarn to the first stitch, we put our hook up under both loops of the first stitch. So then you're going to pin your color A to the back, yarn over and pull up a loop, chain 1, put your finger on top of that loop, insert your hook back into the very same stitch, the very first stitch again, and now you're going to pull up a loop and then yarn over and pull through 2. So now, part of the graph, we're going to work 1 back loop single crochet into the next 5 stitches. So we insert a hook under that back loop and do our first single crochet. 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to do a dip down double crochet once again. 2 rows down, we're going to wrap and insert a hook under that front loop, and we're going to complete a double crochet stitch. And then we're going to do a back loop single crochet. And then we're going to do a dip down double. This stitch straight down. Okay. And then a back loop. And then a dip down. And then a back loop. And then a dip down. Now we have 5 back loop single crochets left. Into the back loop, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On the final stitch, we work under both loops. So we single crochet both loops of the final stitch, pull up a loop, complete a single crochet, chain 2, and now we're going to fasten off. Chain 2, clip the yarn, pull the hook up, grab the yarn with one hand and slide down with the other. So on to row 6. So row 6 is exactly like row 4. You add on color B, you dip down the next stitch, and then you work 3 back loop. And you do that all the way across just like you did on row 4. And as you can see, these X's are all lined up. Row 6 and row 4, they're all lined up exactly in the same spot. Now I know that the shading is a little different on row 6 than it is on row 4, but we never work according to the shading. That's not what we do. What we do instead is we pay attention to whether it has an X and is a dip down double crochet or whether the box is empty. The shading is a result of the overlay, the mosaic overlay. So what you're seeing here is what the pattern looks like once the stitches are put in. But the actual colors don't matter as much as whether the box is empty or whether it has an X. So let's go ahead and do row 6. On row 6, we're adding color B according to the graph. We're just going to yarn over and pull up our first loop, and then we're going to chain 1. You notice I'm going a little faster. Finger on the loop, insert the hook right back into the same stitch, pull up a loop and complete a single crochet stitch. There you go. Let's just go ahead and pull that tail to make sure it's not sloppy. Alright, so now we're going to do a dip down per the graph. So we're going to yarn over, we're going to go right down. This is the stitch we would work in if we're doing a single crochet, but we're doing a dip down double. So we're going to go straight down, second row down, and complete that double crochet, working into that front loop. Now we've got 3 back loop single crochets. Now here's our next stitch. If you go straight up, you can see where that stitch should go. So there's 1, 2, 3. Now we have another dip down. Okay, so if you look where the next stitch is, go straight down, pick up that front loop with your double crochet stitch. Now 3 single crochet stitches all into the back loop. So they're back loop single crochets. 1, 2, 3. And now I'm going to do a dip down double in the next stitch 2 rows down. And then 3 back loop. And a dip down double, straight down the next stitch. Okay, and then we're going to do 3 back loops, single crochets. And that final dip down before we fasten off. Hook under both loops of the final stitch. Complete a single crochet. Whoop, we got to fasten off. We got to chain 2. Here we go. On row 7, we're working with color A. We're going to attach our yarn with color A on the first stitch, and then we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 back loop single crochets, 1 dip down, 3 more back loop single crochets, 1 dip down, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 back loop single crochets, and then we're going to do our final single crochet under both loops, and then we're going to fasten off. Slide your hook up under both loops of the first stitch, and of course attach your color A yarn to that stitch. Pull up a loop, chain 1, and now we're going to do the single crochet stitch into the very same stitch. Pull on that tail just a little, make sure it's secure. Now I'm going to do 5 back loop single crochet stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I'm going to do a dip down double crochet in the next stitch. Now I'm going to do 3 back loop single crochet stitches. And now I'm going to do a dip down double crochet into the front loop of the next stitch. Now I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 back loop single crochet stitches, and now I'm going to do the final stitch under both loops. Complete that single crochet and fasten off. 1, 2, snip. Now we're moving on to row 8. It's going to be color B. We're going to attach with color B, and then we're going to do a dip down double crochet stitch. We'll have 3 back loops and another dip down. Then we'll have 1 back loop and 3 dip downs, 1 back loop and 1 dip down, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 back loops and 1 dip down, and then we're going to do that final double crochet stitch, single crochet stitch underneath both loops, and we will fasten off. So now I am again attaching my yarn to the first stitch. Insert my hook into that same stitch, complete a single crochet, and then I am going to do a dip down on the second stitch. Remember, we're going down 2 rows down and working up under that front loop and completing a double crochet stitch. And now we're going to do 3 back loop single crochet stitches. 1, 2, 3, and another dip down double crochet stitch. Now we're going to do 1 back loop single crochet stitch, and we're going to do 3 dip down double crochet stitches. 1, the next one's right here. We're going to go up under that front loop, and then the next one under that front loop. And now we're going to do 1 back loop single crochet stitch and 1 dip down double crochet stitch, the next stitch. And then we're going to do 5 back loop single crochet stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then our next to the last stitch will be a dip down double crochet stitch. And then we're going to work under both loops on the final stitch, single crochet stitch, and fasten off. So we're on row 9 right here. We're using color A. We attach our yarn to the first stitch with color A. We then work 5 back loop single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we do a dip down. We work 3 more and we do a dip down, and then we work a total of 7 back loop single crochet all the way up to that final stitch. Now that final stitch does not count in the 7. You do that single crochet under both loops like we've been doing every row, and then you fasten off. So let's get started on that. So I am now attaching color A. Remember, chain 1, insert my hook back into that same stitch under both loops, and complete that single crochet. And kind of pull that to secure it. And now I have 5 back loops single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we have a dip down double crochet stitch. Pick up that front loop directly down, second row down, corresponding stitch and corresponding color, complete the double crochet, and then 3 back loop single crochets, 1, 2, 3, and then 1 dip down double crochet, and then we have 7 back loop single crochets, 1, 2, just pull some yarn up here, okay, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then the final stitch, as always, slip our hook up under both loops and do a single crochet. Now we chain 2 and we snip that yarn and then cinch that down. On row 10, we're using color B. We're going to attach color B to the first stitch. That will be the case with all mosaic. Okay. Color B to the first stitch, we're going to attach, and then we do a dip down double immediately after. So on the second stitch, it's a dip down double. Then we have 1, 2, 3 back loop single crochets and a dip down double. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 back loop single crochets and a dip down double. You see where the X's are. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 back loop single crochets and a dip down double, and then we do that final single crochet under both loops and fasten off. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're adding color B. Let's do that real quickly. I'm going to yarn over and pull a loop through. Go. Chain 1 and then insert back under that very same stitch, both loops, and complete a single crochet. And then immediately after, we have a dip down double crochet. Now I've got 3 back loop single crochets, 1, 2, 3, and a dip down double, straight down, second row down, under the front loop. I complete a double crochet. And now I do 5 back loop single crochet stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now a dip down double crochet stitch, and then 5 more back loop single crochet stitches, this is my 5th one, and then I do a dip down double crochet stitch, and then I slide my hook under both loops on the final stitch, and I complete a single crochet. Chain 2, fasten off. So now we are on row 11, and these are the last 3 rows that we're working here. So as you can see, we're almost through this design. And it is color A. We're going to attach with color A on the first stitch, and then we're going to do 5 back loop single crochets. We're going to do a dip down, 3 back loop single crochets, a dip down, 7 back loop single crochets, and we'll fasten off after we've finished that final single crochet under both loops. We'll fasten off, and then we'll move on to row 12 and 13. Once again, adding color A. Now kind of make sure that's attached well. And we're doing 5 single crochet stitches into the back loop. So back loop single crochet next 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we're going to do 1 dip down double crochet stitch, front loop, 2 rows down. And then we're going to do 3 back loop single crochet, 1 back loop single crochet in the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to do a dip down double crochet stitch, and then we're going to do 7 back loop single crochet stitches. 1, 2, that's 1 for the next 7 stitches, so that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we insert our hook under both loops on the final stitch, single crochet, chain 2, snip, cinch that down. We're on row 12, that's color B. We're going to attach color B to the first stitch. Then we have 1 dip down double crochet stitch for the next 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we have 1 back loop single crochet stitch for the next 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we have 1 dip down double crochet in the next 7 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then on the final stitch, we work under both loops a single crochet stitch under both loops, and then we fasten off. Attach color B to the first stitch. Now do 1 dip down double crochet the next 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then do 1 back loop single crochet in the next 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now do 1 dip down double crochet in the next 7 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. 6, 7. And then insert our hook under both loops of the final stitch, single crochet, chain 2, and fasten off. So now we've reached the final row, row 13. On row 13, we're using color A. We have no dip down double crochets, so we work color A into the back loop from the second stitch all the way to the next to the last stitch, number 18. The final stitch, we insert a hook under both loops and we do a single crochet, fasten off, and we will be finished. Attach color A to the first stitch. And we're going to do a back loop, single crochet into every stitch until there is 1 stitch remaining on the row. All the way down, just back loop, single crochet till you get to the end. So that's the basics of Mosaic Overlay. I hope this tutorial has helped you. If it did, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and share.